Hello and welcome aboard the Knitty Stew podcast. My name is Leanne. I am the Knitty Stew. This is my YouTube channel where I share my love of knitting, and generally I take you with me on the road on some of the overnight cities I get to travel to check out local yarn shops, maybe learn some of the history. But this is a special episode today. I have been watching plenty of year-end roundups, what I knit in 2022 videos. I just watched most recently Kel Knits, Kelly of Kel Knits, and Selma of Little Big Knits, Francesca of an Italian knitter, and I've got the bug. I definitely would like to round up my my year with what I made in 2022. So hopefully you'll want to cozy down with me, maybe grab a little cup of something warm. It's just me, the cats, and my 19-year-old son. My husband got called into work and I am at home. I got home from a 4-day trip on Thursday. Got to enjoy the weekend here, nice and warm in the house. Outside it is minus 25 with wind chill, which is minus 13, I believe, Fahrenheit. And we got a big dump of snow. So winter is still here in the prairies of Alberta, where I live. And I am filming today, and I always want to acknowledge with gratitude and respect that I am here on the traditional territory of the people of the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. Calgary, Alberta is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So welcome, hope you're well, hope you've got some happy knits on your needles right now, and maybe you can just quickly go over my knits of the year and not have to pay too close attention. According to Ravelry, I've got a solid 36 projects. So I've got my laptop in front of me. I feel like a newscaster with this. I've got a table up high. Today on Knitting News, 36 is a lot of projects, so I'm not going to wax poetic on every accessory knit that I did, but there are a few things that I think might warrant a bit of a conversation about how they've held up, if they're getting worn, what I think of it at the end of the year versus what I thought of it at the beginning of the year. And it's kind of interesting to see the phases that we go through as knitters, like what we are into and the rabbit holes that I go down. My stuff's all over the map, so I call myself a rumba knitter, that I slow project and then a quick, and that's kind of what I'm seeing on my my Ravelry page. Let's jump right in. My first finished object of 2022 was a test knit. This little thing here is the Manhattan hat. Now, this was for Tori Yu, and she has gone on to create this in different weights. And I tested the newborn, 12-inch to 16-inch circumference. How cute is that? Super quick knit, great little pattern. I really appreciated how the decreases looked, and the adult sizes and the different weights of this pattern available now. I do recommend. I'm going chronologically through these, by the way, just so you understand where I'm going. I do use Ravelry as a big tool for curating my stash, curating my projects. I take very detailed notes because I want to have the information if I need to recreate something that worked out really good. And I've just always used it as that kind of a tool. My next project I will show you, but then I won't show you any of the others that I've made. This is my favorite hat. It's called the On the Sea Train hat by Espace Tricot. And I will try this one on for you. This rib toque, I've made 11 now, officially 11 On the Sea Train hats. This one I made for my daughter. Well, not this one. This one I made for myself, and then I made my daughter another one, and I used Woolfolk Far, which is absolutely glorious wool. It's so soft, fluffy, it's got a halo, just the right amount of slouch in this hat. I've managed to cut out a few of the extra plain repeat rounds in the decreases so that I can get this hat out of one skein of the luxurious Woolfolk Far. That is my go-to hat. I highly recommend the On the Sea Train hat. My next project, I'll have to pop a picture of it because it lives with my daughter. My daughter Anna recently moved out. She's 21 and she got her own apartment, and she took her knitted toys that I made her with her, and this guy went. This is Alfonso the Noble and Ready Monster. It's by Rebecca Danger. I'm a big fan of her toys and her toy patterns, and I gave it to her for Valentine's Day of 2022. I used some self-striping Christmassy kind of yarn that was in my stash, and his colors, I didn't realize, but they're very Italian. Yeah, Alfonso, he lives for simple things like great conversations, great food, and strong espresso. Okay. So that was a fun little project that I finished in February of 2022. Then I went on to something a lot larger. In every sense of the word, I made the Smokin jacket for my buddy Snidey. As most knitters are, I'm like, I don't just make large projects for just anyone. This person has been in my life for 30 years, and he's a great dude. And what he wanted to do with it ultimately was get his mother's Scottish tartan, his family's tartan, and line the pockets with their family tartan. Now that's way beyond my skill set, but I was up for the challenge of this Smokin jacket. It is literally called Smokin by Jarod Flood. Working on a cardigan of this size, I knew that I needed to have something light and lofty. So my go-to, and for this gauge, I used Brooklyn Tweed Quarry, and I used the colorway Obsidian. My gauges, my swatches, everything was working out, and it's kind of a miracle that I finished this project and that it fit him a treat, as my mother-in-law would say. When he came over and tried it on and it fit him perfectly, it just made me happy to no end. So the pattern itself, there were things that I had never done before, including saddle shoulders, which I figured out. And I made one mistake, but I had COVID during this time I was making this, and I forgot to separate at one point, and I was knitting everything without, and including one of the arms, so I had to rip back. But truly, you know what, this thing turned out very successfully, and I do quite like this pattern. I think it was one of his earlier patterns, but it was a success. Then I went on to a bit of a challenging project for myself, and the Woolly Thistle had a knit along for color work, and I made these. I've got a little cardboard keeper in there rather than put them on my feet and try and show you, which I've done before. These are the Arctic Starflower slippers. There is a very difficult Norwegian way of saying that, but I will not attempt that because that would be painful, quite hilarious. And these kicked my butt. I'm not kidding. The pattern is by Kajsa Fredriksson and Vuorela Fredriksson. I'll put all the information to everything I'm talking about in the show notes, of course. And you know what? I was trying to go out on my own, and I didn't do the cast on the way it is meant to be in the pattern. You can't deviate when there's like the increasing. It was yeah, that was my bad, so I ripped back. And I think this was another one of those third time is the charm projects. I'm very pleased with these overall. The I-cord bind off, I did not bind off loosely enough, so I really had to block aggressively. And they were much more comfortable after I did a second blocking. And I'm quite proud of them. They're not perfect, but they're perfect from afar. This was a year of color work and pushing myself to try smaller gauges and more intricate patterns, and that was definitely one of them. After that, I made some gifts for my great nieces, and this is Elijah by Ysolda Teague. I've made this pattern before, and it did not disappoint. It freaked me out at first because before the ears were attached, it looked really, really weird. But I kept going. Once I added the ears, it was great. So I do highly recommend that. It's a super cute stuffy. Trekking along. My other knit for a great niece was the Lottie cardigan. This is when I first met you all. I started my podcast in April, and I was working on this during my very first episode. This Lottie cardigan by Carrie Bostick Hoge is a go-to for me. I've made I believe I've made at least 3 of these, and it's a great project. It works up really quickly because it's in DK yarn. Highly recommend the Lottie cardigan. There's also a Lottie cowl and a Lottie beret. Super cute. You may or may not recall, I made the first ever of mine, Ranunculus. I bought this yarn strictly for the color, and it is from Lang Yarns Kanapa. And I made it cropped, and it looks quite nice with a sundress. I could wear it like this too with a little shirt underneath. Again, I'm obsessed with dark green. Look, the sleeves have flared a little bit, that's for sure. Just kind of, I mean, it's fine. Do I wear this? No. I just wanted to try it. I just wanted to get this yarn out of my stash and to try a ranunculus, which I did enjoy. I definitely didn't do it perfectly. And I went on to make another ranunculus, spoiler alert. And yeah, this was my first ranunculus. After my ranunculus, I went and made the Danivig Hap, which I was saying wrong the whole time. Now, this pattern is by Kate Davies Designs, and it's quite a long wrap that I used as my main source of heat when I went to Newfoundland and wandered around on a chilly day. And it's out of Briggs & Little Sport, a 1-ply yarn, which is a rustic Canadian yarn. Now, I will say this sheep's gray colorway is one of my favorite, absolutely. And it is, in my opinion, very soft. Once it's blocked, working with it was, I had no issues. But when it comes to Briggs & Little, I think the dyeing process can actually make the yarn more rough and rustic, and it already is a fairly rustic yarn. So this colorway in particular, I highly recommend. I can totally wear this next to skin with very minimal agitation. But the other shawl that I made this year with the dark green, it's definitely a lot more prickly. Have I worn this much? No, and I should be, because I really, really like it. I think this thing it checks all the boxes with the texture and the way it wraps around. And what I'm thinking, for the reason, I'm not wearing some of our knits, maybe you're the same, that they're not right in my face. I want to have my knits in a place, in perhaps this wardrobe, if I can bust my balls, which is the challenge I'm trying to do this year with my friend Tracy of Oliver Rain Knits. We've got the hashtag Busting My Balls 2023 to work down our stash. So my stash in here, I'm going to throw out some stats. Through my Ravelry, I was able to download all my yardage and the weights that I've got to bust through with the power of Excel. I have in here 23,098 grams of wool yarn. That translates into 66,780 yards, 61,063 meters, 241 skeins, 23 kilograms, which is 50 pounds. So if I get through more of this stash, perhaps I could have some yarn and then use a shelf for my knits. And then in the morning when I'm coming down through the living room, I'll be like, what should I accessorize my outfit with today? Or what outfit should I pick of my knits? And I think they would get worn more, rather than I have a trunk that I use, and I also fold them and keep them on top of my, in my closet, some of my other knits. But I think I would wear everything more if it was in a very pleasant location, and if I could open the yarn cupboard and perhaps have my knits on one of these shelves. We're doing check-ins every 3 months. So April 1st will be the first weigh-in, and the incentive is every gram. So if I use 500 grams in the next 3 months, 10% of that translates into cold hard cash towards more knitting stuff. Chances are it'll be more wool, or it could be anything related to knitting. So 500 grams would be $50 towards whatever my little knitting heart desires. And I'm thinking about that and going, only a knitter would think, you know, I should use my stash so I can buy more stash. I'm not poo-pooing, and I certainly don't want any yarn dyers or any wool producers to go out of business. And I definitely want to support this industry in every way I can. So I will, and I will also make my life more knitter friendly by having less overwhelming stash. Carrying on. All right. So after my Deniveg hap finished, I went on to do another knit along, and I made the Straya hat with Andrea Mowry's pattern using some fingering weight yarn, and it turned out pretty cute. I'm gonna have to take some of this knit wear off, getting too hot. All right, after that, I made another hat. I made the Trollha hat with, basically I was fiber curious. Oh boy, trying on all these knits might not have been the best idea. I made the Trollha hat out of the Retrosaria Briska, and I was in a bit of a yellow phase right here. So I purchased this and managed to make it out of one skein. I mean, this is the style, right? There we go. Okay. Sorry if the color is a little off here, but it's a lovely bright yellow, and I quite enjoyed working with the Briska. I would definitely do it again, and I like the feel and the hand of it, and it is very lightweight. What I was also looking for is perhaps a replacement or something a little bit more price friendly than my Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is a weakness of mine. I love Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, and it was another worsted weight, I think woolen spun, very lightweight wool. So that's why I got it. That is colorway 3A, and yeah, it satisfied my curiosity. I actually used the Trollha hat pattern, but then I adapted the decreases using the Rastus Hsu Elliot 2x2 rib pattern. After that, I went into a bit of a frog rabbit hole, making the little frogs. So I made Hector, I made frog number 1, frog number 2. Fun pattern, ridiculously cute. Both of these frogs now live with my daughter. They're her good luck charm. She loves her little frogs. All right, carrying on with my woolly thistle inspiration, I made the Bonnie Isle hat by Linda Shearer, was the Shetland Wool Week hat patron of the year, and I did not have the right needle size, and I was clearly not getting gauge. I was going for 21 inches, but it's more of a tam versus just like a beanie. I have since ordered the right size needles, and I used some scraps that I had, some Ramafino that I had, and some Ba Ramu colorwork minis and scraps that I had around. And it was a pretty cool challenge for me, but boy, is that addictive. I was like, one more round. And I wanted to make another one, as well as everything else in the Shetland Wool Week book that I got for myself. And I will keep working on that, on my color work and my ferrule. Then it was another ranunculus. This time, I feel like I got it right. The first time you couldn't really see it. I actually had started out trying to make a hat, and that's why there's so much ribbing at the top, but I really like how that turned out. And the thing that I messed up on, I'd say, was I'd made it too short. At Christmas time, you know, when you don't have too much going on, not too overwhelmed or anything, like the last thing I should have been doing, but I'm like, you know what, I think I'm gonna pick up the right leg of every stitch on this ranunculus and make it a couple inches longer. And I did that in December of this year, or was it late November? But I extended it and I feel like I'm getting a lot more use out of it now. I'm wearing it more. I definitely should have gone up a needle size for the sleeves, for sure. I have learned that small circumference knitting and arms in particular, Andrew Mowry gives that as a tip, that we should probably always go up a needle size, or I know that maybe I should. So it still feels really good. It's a very comfy, and this yarn holds very happy memories of being in St. John's, and it's very lightweight. I have snagged it. Can't really see, it's on here right now. I'm looking for it, I don't see it. But I definitely got to run somewhere. But this was my second ranunculus. And then I made the Tematik. This was my dive into unspun territory. I went on a little romance, and I'm still on it really with unspun yarn. This was my first project. I made it with Woolen Twine's Thrive. Her unspun Woolen Twine just had a shop update, and I'll tell you, busting my balls was not easy. I was watching her YouTube update and I was like, oh, I want it all, but not right now. So I had to have little conversations with myself. Like, you can have that, Leanne, just not right now. It's a little slip stitch pattern. It's made on 5.5 millimeter US 9 for the brim, and then the body was 8 millimeter US 11. It is so soft. I gotta say, it's like surprisingly cozy and lovely. I do not have any itching on whatsoever wearing this hat. It's very lightweight. I wear it, and I'm definitely down. Thanks to this hat and some of the leftovers, I was able to finish a cardigan that I was working on, made with other unspun yarn that had a similar enough look and color. So this was my very first thing with unspun. And I finished that in July, because who doesn't need to be knitting a toque in July? The Sophie scarf. I called it my September Sunshine Sophie scarf. And I used some leftover earth yarn that I had. It took, how much? I used 61.6 yards, 0.28 of a skein. And it's cute. Have I worn it? Not a single one time. After that, I worked on my sister's shawl. A Pure Joy shawl. Okay, I got a lot of sock yarn colorways going, so we'll get rid of that costume change. Now this is a pattern by Hoge Locatelli. And I used some windswept fibers, which I over dyed, and some Olan sock in the colorway Veil. Yes, so this was Pure Joy. I knit it in the summer, and I really like how it contrasted, and I loved the simplicity of it. Garter stitch. I can't think of a better project in the summer than a lightweight shawl like so. And I made it for my sister, June, but she's very sensitive to anything woolly around her neck. And the Olan sock was actually making her scratchy, or making her itch. Not making her scratchy. So I replaced that with a different gift for her. But I do recommend this pattern. If you have one skein, why not? You gotta look up Hoge Locatelli, because she makes glorious one skein. I mean, I call this a scarf. It is, you know, a shawl, but just the shape of it, I'm a fan. So that was one of my favorites for sure. I kind of went on to a shawl kick. This here is my Karuna shawl by Rania Hacaletto. This was a marathon for me, like in every sense of the word. It is beautiful. The garter stitch part, which is where you start, is piece of cake. And then it's time to get into the lace portion, which is lovely. The texture is fabulous. This is probably one of my most proud knits of 2022. I blocked it very aggressively because I wanted it to be massive. Now this is my favorite color, and I made it in Briggs & Little Sport again. It's a schlanket. The pattern, I had to use stitch markers galore to keep me straight as far as the pattern of the laces repeat. And I'm wearing it right now. It's totally fine, but I would definitely say Briggs & Little is, especially in the darker colors or the colors that have been dyed, is a lot more scratchy. Have I worn this? No. Again, I think it's just not there for me to grab as I'm going out the door because it's so warm. And on a day like today when the wind chill, it's -25 out there, this would be perfect. So again, if it's in my sight, perhaps I'll grab it more. I was doing my own knit along. There was a knit along the year prior for the Karuna shawl by Knitting My Way Home podcast. And I was like, well, I'm late to the party, but I'm still gonna challenge myself. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got it done. I did learn a great deal. And one of those things was that I needed to get some Jayagoose in my life, some metal needles, because I love my Knitter's Pride wooden set, which has served me well and continues to. I'll keep that thing forever, I think. But when it comes to a rustic yarn and a massive shawl project, garter stitch, like I needed the metal needles in my life. So I got them the following month. Real quick, I'll just breeze right over this one. This was a super fast knit. I was practicing in some unspun that I had in my stash. This is my own pattern. This I originally designed this pattern using Woolly's Thick and Quick, and it only takes two colors, or you can make it in 3 colors, and you can get 2 cowls out of 2 balls of the Woolly's Thick and Quick. But this was made of, yeah, oh sorry, not Briggs & Little. This is Custom Woolen Mills Prairie Wool Bulky 6-strand. And yeah, this, I mean, I whipped this up on a US 15, which is a 10mm needle, and this one flew off. And I was just practicing again with some unspun. I hope you're enjoying this video. I hope it's not too boring and exhausting. I wanted to podcast today because we've got I don't know, there's some sort of a water main break, and there's something going on with the sewage line out in front of our house. So the workers from the city have been digging up the ground, backhoes, ground, all kinds of noise shaking all the time. So today was nice and quiet. And so I thought, today's the day. Today is the day. Next up was my traveler's cardigan, which smells really good. What does that smell? Okay, so this was my first use of the Nutiden Skrimsle, and this pattern is by Hayley Smedley, also known as Ozetta. Now this has gotten worn a lot, not just by me, but from my daughter, who she didn't take this with her to her apartment because I kept it. This sucker turned out really well, and it is so soft, so lightweight, very cozy. I did run out of yarn making this, and I was able to use my leftover Thrive to finish the cuffs. Now, how is it holding up? Right, we're getting some pilling here. I haven't done anything to glean it. I actually don't even have a gleaner. I should probably get one of those. Definitely one of my most wearable and I think gorgeous knits of 2022. I deviated from the pattern. I will call myself out on that. Hayley has you knit the button band at the same time as the body, and then you join it, you do the collar after. But I was supposed to use 2 needle sizes down for this portion, and I did it all with a 6mm. So that was the one thing that I think would have changed the shaping a little bit. But at the end of the day, I guess I should talk towards the camera. At the end of the day, I definitely really like this cardigan. Ooh, I'm shaking the camera. I haven't added my buttons yet, so that's something. I should get onto that. Next, I have Louie the Lovebot. I made this to replace the previously loved to death version of Louie the Lovebot that I gave to my nephew Ethan, and he loved it. He loves them both, but have I never had that experience before where I made a young one a thing that they couldn't be without, and he just adores this thing. Highly recommend this pattern. However, I'd had a bunch of people messaging me saying they wanted to make Louie the Lovebot, and the pattern was no longer available. So good news, I emailed Rebecca Danger, and she got back to me, and she's like, I actually, funny you would email me today, she had just finished updating the pattern, or I don't know what changes she was making, but it will be released, and it will be released for free on her blog, which I believe is called I'll put it here. And she said she's gonna email me and let me know when it's available and send me a link. But I'll put that on my Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. But yeah, stay tuned for Louie the Lovebot, which will be a free pattern available by the amazing Rebecca Danger. All right, following my Louie the Lovebot, I made the Golden Dickey, which I was determined to use one skein of Malabrigo worsted, and it turned out quite well. I went off the pattern from Drops Design, 214-49B Winter Wisps Neck Warmer, and I made some major modifications and was able to get that out of one skein of Malabrigo worsted in Frank Ochre. Love that color. And then I went back after, instead of the Pure Joy shawl, which was itching my sister June, and I made my sister June a Dickey, and I made hers in the Malabrigo worsted as well, Azul Profundo. So I've gone onto my Ravelry page and put exactly how I made the Dickey. Hopefully the numbers work up, and it is, I think it's a very wearable knit, and I was joking around that I would like to make one for each of my sisters. So I would get my own Dickey, and then my sister Rhonda and June both have one. So then I have two other sisters to make Dickeys for, and then we could get like a sister's picture with all matching Dickeys. Too much? All right, we're almost at the end here, everyone. If you're still here, thank you for hanging around. Next, I made some thick and quick mittens with some more Malabrigo. This is Malabrigo Mecha. Sorry, it is a little bit dark in here, but I hope you can still see the colors. This was a free pattern put out by Simone of Sand and Sky Designs. I love it. It whipped up super quick. I made them on 4.5mm needles for the cuff, and US 9, which is a 5.5mm for the body of the mitten. One skein, actually less than a skein, only took me 81 grams, which is 105 yards of Malabrigo Mecha. Boom. Okay, now I don't know, this is the one thing I couldn't find in my house. My bandana cowl. So I participated in the Pearl Soho bandana cowl. Yes, and they sent me yarn for it, which was really cool. That was a very neat experience. And I picked two colors. One was Reed Gray, which is the one I kept. Where it is, I'm not sure. And then the other one, which was made with the Fresh Fig, I gave to my sister Wendy. She says she loves it. She's wearing it while she's taking care of the chickens out in the yard. Again, this pattern, I just think it's really great and highly recommend it because it is knit all in one piece, and it's got some short row shaping. The only thing that I ran into, and it wasn't just myself, it was also my friend Casey from Young Folk Knits podcast. She ran out of yarn chicken. She lost at it, and so I had also lost at it, so I ripped back and I cut out some of the regular knit rounds and just went into the garter stitch rounds for the collar, and was able to get it with 139 yards, one skein of the Plenty base. Now you could make this in other bulky-ish weight yarns. Technically, the Plenty is supposed to be Aran weight, but you just need a lofty yarn to get it to sit up nice and to hold its shape. That would be my recommendation. Plug for my cable, for the cabled head warmer I made. This pattern was fabulous. I used my Breed of the Month in the Rambouillet, and I whipped that up out of less than a skein, and free pattern available, and it is by Michelle Greenberg, Chunky Cabled Headband, and that's exactly what it is. All right, last but not least, my definite 100% favorite. Oh no, oh, I forgot one thing that was also my favorite. It fell on the floor. I cannot forget this. I loved making this. This is my Pressed Flowers hat. That was between the Pure Joy shawl and the Golden Dickey in my projects. Okay, by Pressed Flowers hat by Amy Christoffers, made in Durare Natura Ulysse. Love this hat. Oh, I learned a lot. I hadn't done mosaic quite like this before, but this is a very, very nice hat. I did not wear it, which is, I don't know, it needs to be worn more because I love the yarn. I love the colors that I knitted up in. Durare Natura Ulysse. I want more of this in my life. Look at this. I think the stitches turned out great. After I blocked it, I think it sat quite well. And I like the decreases. Show the top of the hat. Again, a little bit of puckering because of tension. But now there's a cardigan. And of course, I think there was a shawl. Yeah, a shawl, the Pressed Flower shawl before this hat was even released. So I quite enjoyed the mosaic knitting, and I would love to get more Durare Natura in my life. So, okay, now last but not least, my favorite knit of 2022, hands down, was my Svag. Oh my gosh, so good. Oh, I loved it. I just talked about this in my last podcast, so I don't want to drone on and blather on about it, but I'm putting it on right now. I'm so glad I have this collared shirt with the short sleeves. I got this from a secondhand store called Value Village, and I almost didn't buy it. And this was years ago, and I wear this thing so much. I often think, like, what if I hadn't bought this shirt? I wear it a lot. Okay. So, my Svag by Caitlin Hunter. Okay, so the length, the fit, the yarn, the lace portion, the tension, and the warmth of it, and the texture. 10 out of 10. I absolutely love it. I still have some of the Amelia and Philomene yarn left from my Stephen West mystery knit along that I didn't finish, and I would certainly recommend this beautiful pattern, but also this beautiful yarn. This is Arcane Fiber. He's a hand dyer in southern Alberta named Tyler, and he does beautiful colorways. This one is Blazing Birch, and this is Mayflower, this main color by the Amelia and Philomene. It's the Adeline base, and I used 2.75 skeins. So that is a total of 1,101 meters, and I made size 3 of the pattern by Caitlin Hunter. Okay, that's it. That's everything I made in 2022. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm going to finish it with some footage from an adventure that my sister Wendy and I went on last week. We were lucky enough to be invited down to southern Alberta, to an area just north of Lethbridge. So it was 2 hours and 11 minutes drive from where I live. And we got to go to the Albion Ridge Hutterite colony, and they were shearing their Rambouillet sheep. We had a front row seat, and Brother James and Brother Andrew were so kind to us. They let us just watch what they were doing. And there was other people from the community that were there watching as well. And we brought 3 bags full, like the song, They're like the nursery rhyme. And we'll see what those turn into. But what a great day. Just, it was so beautiful the whole day. So I'll finish with that. And thank you so much for being here. Hope it wasn't too rambly. I tried to finish that as quickly as I could. But I still hope it was relaxing and fun and inspiring. Whatever you're up to these days, I hope that you are finding joy, having good coffees or teas, healthy, happy. All right, we'll see you next time here on the Knitty Stew.